Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Nitro Nights here at Overtake.gg. My name is Rene, and if you're an avid viewer of our channel, then you probably know that normally in Nitro Nights, we dive deep into topics about sim racing, hot discussions, all that stuff, maybe sometimes tip our toes a bit into Simcade. But what if I tell you that today everything is a bit different? But instead of telling you about all the details right away, let's just get started. So let's talk about the first difference of today's episode, and that is the topic itself, because this time we're not talking about hardcore sim racing or Simcade. Instead, we're talking about arcade racing. Don't turn off the video right now. It is an important topic to talk about because it's also kind of needed for sim racing. Why, you might ask? We'll figure out in today's episode. Swoosh, and the bigger difference is the actual guest list today, because you know in Nitro Nights there's always someone on my couch here talking to me, but unfortunately my guest got ill this morning, so best wishes, get well very, very soon, and I had to figure out a new plan. I got one. One of them is I will remotely talk to Broey1322 about arcade racing, and secondly, because I really wanted someone in the studio, someone that knows about racing and racing games, someone that's as knowledgeable as everyone else out there. So I'll actually talk to myself for today's show. That will work. Don't worry, you will see in a bit. So why are arcade racing titles somehow important to us sim racers? Because not everyone started with $300 on their iRacing account, went right into oval racing or the 24 hours of Spa, right? We had to get people interested in racing with us, doing virtual racing in general, and that mostly happened on arcade titles. Nowadays, there's a very specific title that is the starting point for many in terms of their racing career, and you're probably a bit surprised which one that is.
Launched in late 2013, GTA Online has, for better or worse, lasted 3 generations of gaming console. In the almost 9 years since its launch, its racing communities have heroically sustained the game's life. With hosted racing events on the streets of Los Santos, the back roads elsewhere in San Andreas, or even on massive stunt ramps. Even though its name refers to a felony including the stealing of a car, the game was never built with serious racing in mind. Nonetheless, the passionate community made GTA 5 into possibly the most important casual racing game of the past decade, hosting all sorts of competitions that even range to fully fledged multi-class endurance championships in which drivers compete in 90-minute-long races.
Of course, I'm not discussing a huge topic like racing in GTA with myself. Instead, it's time for my first guest, who is Broey1322. Although I just learned it's Bruffy1322. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Nitro Nights. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Even if I misspelled your name, I'm really sorry for that. But let's actually
everybody
talk.
Does it.
Everybody does. Okay, then at least that's fine. Let's talk about the first big topic, and that is racing in GTA. Seems to be quite sophisticated nowadays. I have to say I did some online racing, but I never imagined that there's like multi-class and endurance racing and all that by now. It's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's evolved a lot since when we first started. You know, when the game first came out in 2013, we were just racing around the tracks that Rockstar gave us. But as time has gone on, to Rockstar's credit, they've added things that have helped that along. But you know, there's been sort of a racing community that's built up around the game and gradually, you know, built these incredible tracks and done these organized racing events. And yeah, it is surprising because GTA isn't a racing game, but it is a car game. So yeah, I mean, wherever there's cars, people are going to find a way to race them, I guess.
Yeah, but you already said you had like Forza Motorsport in there and Gran Turismo. So normally, from what we hear from people, it's like from there on they go through Assetto Corsa Competizione, iRacing maybe. How did you end up on GTA? Why did you choose that title as your main racer?
I think it was just that was the thing that I was wanting to do at the time. You know, when I playing the Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsport games, it eventually got to the point, I think, sort of around the Gran Turismo 6 time, where I got a little bit, you know, done with them, a little bit bored, because it was just the same thing over and over and over again. And the arcade games that I used to play, like the Need for Speeds, I felt like they weren't quite as good as what they were back in the underground days. And then, you know, I've always loved the GTA games ever since GTA 3, and you know, I was going to cover it for my channel anyway, Grand Theft Auto. So I just thought hey, I raced a little bit in GTA 4. I'll race a little bit in GTA 5. And that was kind of all I thought about it. I'll just do some racing and maybe people will come along for the ride. And they did. And we built up a community of people who like to race. And I think the variety that GTA gives you with the content creator being able to make all these different tracks with all the different cars, there's 500 different cars, all varying in their performances and how they handle. There's just such a wide variety of things that you can do that it kind of ruined other arcade racing games for me, and they can't sort of live up to that anymore.
That's fine if you found something that you love that much. That's totally okay. Thanks for your insight on GTA. And I have to say now, I definitely have to try out some of that because I never did endurance racing on it yet. I just did the normal races that you find in the online mode. But I'm definitely intrigued to find out and check it out.
I will say, don't necessarily just go and open up GTA and do whatever Rockstar give you to do. Those aren't very good races. You gotta get involved in a community who are going to do some organized racing properly. That's where the true racing is.
Yeah, we might do that as Community Night at Overtake. Who knows? Thanks very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye.
Alright, now we know how GTA took over the casual racing game market in the last decade. Variety, fun gameplay, and well-organized online communities, just like Brathies. But what about the variety in games? How come genre-defining IPs like Midnight Club, Midtown Madness, street legal redline racing, or even the infamous Need for Speed are either gone for good or just aren't as popular anymore? The reality is that casual racing games have shrunk down to a tiny group. Next to the Forza Horizon series, nothing can compare that isn't also dipping its toes into the Simcade genre, like GT7 for example. So the question that comes up is, are casual racing games as we knew them already dead?
Back at the couch, that means we're ready for our second interview segment. And this time it's a bit different because I'm more than happy, obviously, to say hi to my guest this time, Rene. Great that you took your time. I know that you're normally busy, especially with Nitro Nights recording. So glad that you found some free time. Just to let you know, you were definitely not my first pick as an interview guest. It's just because no one else could make it. But hi. Great to be here. Let's be real, you should be quite happy that I made it because it seems like there were not many other people waiting to talk to you. So yeah, I'm ready. All right, let's talk about today's topic, which is arcade racing. And I heard that you're as a sim racer, a hardcore sim racer. There is a little secret that you have, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did not start on sim racing titles, although I played Microprose Grand Prix. I think we talked about that in a different episode of Nitro Nights. But my first competitive racing title was actually Need for Speed Underground. So I raced in a 1v1 ladder back in the days. Like ladder, no one says that word anymore today. But yeah, so I got a medal in that. I was leading that ladder for quite a bit. And it's not sim racing, but it was a very cool thing. I enjoyed it. I still enjoy today racing in arcade racing titles, and I think there's nothing wrong with that.
But most of these titles that you mentioned so far, they're in the past, right? It seems like besides GTA, what we just heard in the previous interview, which is super active on that, there seems to be no other big arcade title anymore if we're not accounting for Forza Horizon, for example. Why do you think that is? Like, what changed?
Yeah, I think that there's a big change actually in the market. As I said, back in the days, we had all of these big franchises that did arcade racing, and I think for many, it was a similar progression as mine. And as you also mentioned, we have Forza Horizon, which is still a great arcade title. We have a lot of Simcade titles nowadays with the F1 games and with Gran Turismo and all that stuff. But it seems like there's no studio that really wants to tackle the challenges of creating an arcade racer, because back in the days, doing arcade racer was still, at some point, the best we could do, right? In terms of the physics that were available, in terms of the graphic engine that was available. Nowadays, we can do a full-fledged simulation and let it look like real life and let it feel almost like real-life racing. So I think that just changed the challenge. Like, now people don't see an arcade race anymore as a good product because it's like, oh, but it doesn't do this correctly like iRacing, it doesn't do that like ACC, it doesn't do this like R-Factor 2.
Yeah, makes sense. Why not enjoy all of it, right? It's all virtual racing. Makes total sense to me. Thanks, Rene, for joining us on this interview. And that actually means that I'm done with probably my hardest interview. It's not an easy guest, I can tell you that. It's not the easiest thing to do in my career, kinda. But let's just continue on with Nitro Nights. As everything was different today anyway, I thought, why not lay down? Because it's the end of another Nitro Nights episode. Not the end for you just yet, because you should really let us know in the comment section down below which arcade racing title did you start on, how did you get into sim racing, and then also make sure to like the video and hit the subscribe button. That would be really, really appreciated. I got nothing else to say other than my name is Rene, and I'll see you guys next time. Actually not true, because there is more to tell you, as you can also watch other Overtake.gg videos. For example, this, the previous Nitro Nights episode that you can check out, or this video, one of my personal favorites.